9, it should refer to properties revised through August 2nd, not August 10th. The August 2nd revision represents what was undertaken at the infrastructure committee. Sorry, Dr. Wiley, can you make a motion, please?
I move the town council adopt ordinance 100803 approving RZ08-05 Putnam Farm with that August 2nd date.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Priscilla. Any discussion? Seeing none. Dr. Wall, I'm sorry, Joe. You gotta.
Yeah, I have discussion.
Okay.
All right. One of the things that has been in the comments and has gone back and forth has been that some of the monies will be actually given at the time of building permits. And I asked both the applicant and staff today to find a better method. One of the options staff gave was at zoning permit time. Well, at zoning permit time, you're zoning the entire lot. What they were trying to do was to divide it up building by building as it was happening. And we looked at different methodologies for doing that. I think as we came through tonight, there is a methodology for doing that by building, and that would be at the time of granting the meter. The building permit happens in the county. We have no control over it here in the town. We had control the zoning permit, but if the methodology is to do it building by building, would that work?
With the zoning permit. The zoning permit is what you need to get a building permit from the county.
Each individual zone.
Each individual building gets a zoning permit.
All right, because their understanding was that they were going to get a zoning permit for the total property.
You get a zoning permit.
For each individual building, right? It's a prerequisite for them to get a building permit for a new building. It's called a zoning permit.
I would like to make that, ask the applicant if they would make that change, because all that does is puts the proffers in the town's control rather than possibly in the county's control.
This is.
Thank you.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Michelle Rosani for the applicant. The proffers before the council that are signed and executed do say building construction permit, and they were done that way for the purpose of doing it with each individual building. I understand Councilwoman Mayor's comment about wanting to make sure that the authority is in the town. I do believe that it still is. One of the things that we looked at as a measure was the home proffers. And in those proffers, cash contributions for the road improvements, actually at the time of final bond release, which is something that's in control of the town, but it is much later. So we could have done it that way, but it would have been a much later approval. One of the things that I did suggest earlier today, because I think the concern of staff was, we won't necessarily know when the building permit gets issued, even though you have to still post it on the property when you start to commence construction pursuant to it. One of the things that we would be willing to do, and I'll state this on the record, is to put on the site plan that any copies of the building permits, when they are submitted with the county, will be sent to the town. So the town will know when they have been submitted, and the town will then have notice that they can say, hey, look, you guys need to come for your property for that building. I think that that's something that we can do that doesn't require amending the signed proffers that are already before the council. And I submit that for the record.
My only concern with that is that if they could decide, once they have their building permit, they can build a building. And if the proffers aren't given to the town, the only recourse the town has would be court. So, okay, we'll do it that way and we'll double the proffers if we have to go to court. I don't know how else. I'm not comfortable with the town not having control at the point when the money is supposed to get paid.
If I may ask, we anticipate So, you know, it's not technically true that you don't have any leverage, it's not at that same point in time. I do understand your concern, but, I mean, and I think frankly, if we had understood in July when this comment was made on review, why it was being made, I think we would have been able to work that out. I think just logistically, with what we're struggling with, it's possibly hard to execute, but, you know, if there's any other mechanism that we can make sure that the town is comfortable, that they will be aware of when this all happens, I'm open to suggestions.
It's not an aware issue. The aware, I mean,
You want to be able to not issue the zoning permit.
I have to think that you do have leverage because they're gonna need individual zoning permits for every other building that follows forward. So why would you take the step of not paying it, knowing that we hold your bonds and every other zoning permit that follows for each individual building? So I think the town has a considerable amount of leverage with any applicant that comes before us. So I appreciate what you're saying, Joan, but I've never seen the county withhold a building permit when the applicant has come forward with a zoning permit.
That's why we would prefer it be conditioned on the zoning permit. That's the equivalent for us of a building permit, if you will. That's the only say that we have when a new building is going to be built. And since the contribution is triggered, you know, when a building is going to be built, then the zoning permit is how we always, that is the piece of paper that we use for this purpose. And in terms of bonds, they bond the public improvements on the site. That doesn't have anything to do with the cash contribution. That would not be bonded. So that's a separate, you know, the proffer should be, should be enforceable by the town, and it's not related to the bonding of the project at all, if that makes sense to you guys. We bond the improvements on the site under our ordinance, separate ordinance, under our subdivision ordinance. The roads and the water lines and such are bonded, but that doesn't have anything to do with this particular contribution. So I think what you're trying to get at is just what is the best way to get the trigger for when that would be paid. And the zoning permit is the trigger, because that's when in order to get a building permit for a new building, any applicant comes to us first, because the county won't give them a building permit unless they get a zoning permit from us first. I mean, this is something the county pointed out in their comments as well, that it should be, since it shouldn't be a building permit, it should be a zoning
Thank
permit.
you, Mark. Thank you.
You get that?
Do you have
Mr. Mayor, am I correct that the town actually issues occupancy permits for the individual ones?
in town, yeah?
So, you know, I think that the very last thing, even worse than getting stopped on a job site, is having the building completely built, paying that service, and not being able to put something in it. So that's actually probably the most leverage you can think of.
Well, unfortunately, having been here a while, it is, because we had a Zimmer built a giant shopping center, used residents. They didn't worry about getting it when they needed temporary occupancy permits, because they were making money off the rentals, and we had to step in and intervene in those cases. So unfortunately, it's not a full problem, because if you signed a lease for someone, they're expecting to get in, it becomes town steps in if it comes down to that. Unfortunately, that's been the case for your predecessors and those before. Generally not happening, but that's what occurs. The counter leverage is, when I sign a lease, the leaser can't go in, it's mom and pop, they're losing money. Go to the town and say, well, let us in on a temporary design, because that particular development still hasn't cleared bonds or profits.